Yay, I'm back. Had to rush off last night, go see my son. Thank you everybody for letting me know that I left on my live feed. I clicked end stream, but I'm supposed to click another button to make it officially stop. I guess it's asking me whether or not I really want to stop the live feed, but apparently didn't get the hint. So I did, and everything's good. So I'm back tonight, and we can talk about a number of things now. We can continue our discussion on the 462 valve and whether or not we should modify that. Have my phone with me, just in case of an emergency. John's here, ProCharge Mopar, unfinished. Jason, all right, fishing up a storm. Chicken fingers. Karen, what's up? We were talking last night about the 462 valve stuff and whether or not you should modify. And here's the thing, and I get this all the time. Oh, that's the worst engine ever, and blah 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 blah, because it's not an LS or it's not a Coyote or it's not whatever. When I do modifications to these motors, I do it not so. As a matter of fact, any modification I do on any motor, it's not so that I'm telling you, look, this is what you should do. I know that there's a lot of that on the internet, and there's especially a lot of that from specific shops and specific tuners. They'll tell you, oh, this is absolutely the best way to go. This is the best camera. These are the best heads, or this is the best kind of forced induction. Nothing I do is that. So anything that I do on any motor, I'm not telling you that this is what you should do. What I'm telling you is when you do that, here's what happens. So there's lots and lots of 462 valve guys out there. They want to modify their motor. Not everybody's going to swap it. It doesn't cost $12 to swap an LS into a Mustang, regardless of what people tell you. It's a lot more expensive than that. It's a lot more complicated than that. And so there are lots of guys that would upgrade what they have. All of us don't have the money to go out and buy an LS and a different transmission and a standalone management system and all the things it takes to make that happen. It's certainly not all at once. And then what happens is if guys decide to do that, there's lots of projects just sitting idly by and nothing happening. But a 462 valve guy or anybody else might have the money to do one thing at a time. Maybe he can do a ported head or a camshaft or headers or whatever it is. And so that's why I do these modifications. I want to do them for the guys that have these combinations. Whether that's a L98 tune port motor, which we know is not the most powerful thing, a 462 valve or a 464 valve or a Coyote or an LS3 or anything else. So for instance, the video that I posted today was actually run, we did it on a 6-liter, but we did it on a Blueprint crate engine. So it was a 6-liter crate engine equipped with their own LS3 style rec port heads. Now, I'm not telling everybody you need to go out and buy a Blueprint engine. As a matter of fact, most of the time I tell people that you don't have to do that. You should do it from a junkyard standpoint, because it's a lot less money. So if you want to do that, but the thing is that there are guys out there that just want to get a complete thing that's ready to go. Like they don't want to piece together this short block and then this cylinder head and this air piece head studs and this gasket and this intake and all that stuff, because a lot of guys don't understand or know as much as they need to know to make all of that stuff happen. They just want to go, oh, look, this motor makes this much power. If I go grab that and put it in, that will do what I need to do. So that's what I call the easy button. That's if you have the money and, God bless you, you go out and you get your crate motor and you need 500 horsepower, you buy this 500 horsepower thing and it goes in, and that's awesome. And those guys are great. The other guys are the guys like me. I go to the wrecking yard. I'll never find a 6-liter as much as I would like to. But you have a 6-liter, you can put the factory, some kind of LY6 or LS3 rec port heads on it, any kind of camshaft, put what kind of induction system on, and away you go. It's really, really easy to make very, very good power with a 6-liter LS. There's lots of cylinder head choices for them. There's, even given the limitations of available piston valve clearance, there's lots of cam choices for them. Lots of different manufacturers all make good cams. And the one thing I'd like for people to realize is, and it's along these lines, that I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm showing you what happens if you do something. When we do a combination like this, and I put that comp 227, 243 cam in, and it came from comp, but if it came from BTR or Texas Speed or Cam Motion or anybody else, and it had about those specs, it's going to do about the same thing. So it's not that specific cam you have to make this happen. Obviously, it will do that. But the BTR cam that's like that will do that, and the Cam Motion one, and the Texas Speed, and there's lots of good places to get that stuff from. So that's the other thing, is I want you guys to be able to extrapolate what could happen on your combination from a test that we did on a combination that might be a little bit different. So there's like a wealth of information in all this dyno testing, and it's even more than the stuff that I'm giving you. And remember, I'm never going to tell you, look, you have to do this thing. I'm just going to tell you, when you do this, this is what happens. So, and that's why we did on the 462 valve stuff. A good way to go is, ported stock heads. You can go the trick flow head if you want to get even more airflow and more power. Mild cams, I kind of always recommend those 262 cams for most street guys, because that's the best average power production. If you do that stuff with a PI intake and then add a blower or turbo would be even better. You have a really, you've got a really stout combination. It's going to surprise a lot of people. So I'm all for modifying what you have, regardless of what it is. I don't care. The 1 liter Chevy Sprint Turbo, I modified the heck out of that thing. We ran all kinds of boost and different intercoolers and all kinds of stuff. It was rated at 70 horsepower with the boost from the factory. So swapping an engine in there, any twin cam engine, any Honda 1.6 B series deal, or a Toyota twin cam, or anything else would be a big upgrade in power. But that's not the point. We wanted to make work what we had, which is why I do the Slant 6, a 2JZ, or an RB, or an Atlas, or anything would be a lot better. But that's not the point. The point is I want to show what the guys that have that are modifying that particular thing, how many 347 Pontiacs are out running around. I don't know, but I've never run one. So I want to see what happens and show people, when we do that, what actually happens and how they can get from whatever the power output is of that thing. We don't even know because we haven't run it yet, but whatever it is, to however we make it better. Here are the step-by-step things, and here's what you can do if you want to do that. Okay, let's see what you guys think. Let me step back here a little bit. First of all, hey to everybody, what's up? I'm glad you guys are here. Dakota's running over to watch the 6-liter video. Florida's in the house. 4.6 liter stuff first. Yep, we went through that stuff. There's a lot of good modular stuff. The thing that I like most about doing that modular stuff is I did a whole mods for mods series. So we went through almost everything that you could do to a modular Ford, at least back in the day. But I liked doing the custom intake manifold. I love the adjustable intake manifolds to show people what happens when you change the runner length and stuff, and when you attach the plenums, and when you put tubes in front of the plenums, and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it makes it easy to test when you do stuff like that. For me, I think it looks really cool. Question, what's an upgrade from the 97 SN95 Cobra engine? Isn't a 97 a modular engine? And a Cobra would be a 4-valve. Yeah, John Hovitz does amazing stuff. And he's got a billet block now for the Coyote stuff, which I did a story on and did the photos on and stuff, and it's impressive. And in a 97, let's see, did you say 97? Yeah, and a 97 Cobra boost is a really good option. There are cams for them, and the 262 AH cams that we ran in the 03 Cobra motor worked very well. They'll also work good in that. I have an FR500 intake manifold, and that's the magnesium version with the dual runners. I have one of those, which that will add power at the top, shorter runners, more RPM. That motor loves to rev, put cams in it, put ported heads, and good things happen. Although most guys will combine that with boost, and it's just a higher level than the 2-valve stuff. So making 4-digit stuff on a 4-valve motor is not hard at all. Devlin, I don't have any V10 stuff yet. I haven't run one, but that is on the list. I haven't seen anything going on with the EPA deal. I know that there's a thing being circulated so that we can try to sign it to try to, obviously we want to continue to be able to modify our stuff, and hopefully that they don't take that thing, that ability away from us. Will 5.4 heads off of a 2000 F250 fit a 96? If they're 2-valve heads and you're putting them on a 2-valve motor, then yes, they will fit. And if you're 4-valve and you're putting them on a 4-valve deal, then yes, they will fit. And actually, they would fit either way because they'll bolt right on. You just have to get the rest of the front drive. Black Cars Garage, you have an LSA that I can run? Here, send me an email so we can get in touch. I might be interested in using that. I just popped my email up there. Tennessee's in the house. Just put an L96 in my K20 and I love it. It has a 203 212 500 lift cam and run it with a Terminator X. That's a really small cam, so that should feel fun in that. An Iron Duke, yeah. I haven't run one of those other than seeing them, you know, in the car on chassis dyno stuff way back, but I've never run one. What's the best bang for the buck carb setup to drop in a Mustang or an LS? It depends on if you're talking about new. The best bang for the buck stuff is cheap stuff that you find in a wrecking yard, but for an LS, you're not likely going to find a carbureted combination because that's only aftermarket stuff. But the Brawler carburetors are pretty cheap, or you can get any kind of used Holley or other type of carburetor, and then you just get a dual plane or a single plane. Those manifolds are not terribly expensive. And then what we normally do is put the MSD ignition controller on there. Yeah, Jason, 100 shot on that will work fine, and then you can step things up a little bit. Zach, go ahead and that's why you're here, man. Go ahead and ask away. Richard, have you ever tested the BTR Stage 3 Turbo Cam? Yeah, I've tested both the regular Stage 3 Turbo Cam and the Twin Turbo Cam because we ran those on some of the big bang motors. Does a GDI motor have an advantage when boosted? It might have the potential for being less susceptible to detonation, although usually the compression is fairly high on the GDI motors because that's one of the reasons that they do it. They're injecting the fuel in right at the last moment, so it has less chance for detonation. So if it has high static compression, that might eliminate some of the advantage. But I actually like the port injected stuff because it has more charge cooling, at least if you're talking about power. Now, the argument there, and this is, I was talking to Brian Tooley about this yesterday or the day before, and the discussion is, does a direct injected motor have an advantage over a port injected motor when the motor is the same? So like if we take a direct injected motor like an L83 and we put port injection on it, will the extra power from charge cooling offered by the port injection allow it to make more power than the direct injected combination? Because when they do direct injection, like I said, usually they raise the static compression and can run different timing curves when they do that. So they do that to be able to take advantage of what is offered by the direct injection. But if you have those advantages already and you just add port injection, is it going to improve the power even more? And we'd kind of like to find that out, because I was talking to him about running my L83 and piggybacking, and I think he said Crawford has a setup to do this, where you piggyback a Holley and run a port injected combination, run the direct injected motor up to a given power level, whatever it will support, from the factory stuff on the 5.3, and then add port injection for, like, if we were going to run boost, because I want to run turbo stuff on that motor. Where do you find long tube headers? Look for a C350 drive. Look for we get our stuff. Take a look at the Hooker catalogs. Take a look at the Blackheart stuff. Take a look at Hedman. Take a look at Doug's. So one of those guys should certainly have something for that chassis. We are doing inline 6. I have the 225 slant 6 in the back of my truck right now. I have the 292 also on the list. I don't have those yet. Are three others. One is the 300 Ford. The other is the 4.2 liter Atlas inline 6-cylinder Chevy, and then the 4 liter Jeep are also all ones that I want to do. LS3 versus LS2 turbo. The one that makes more power NA would make more power under boost, and so the LS3 has an advantage there, but it is I think it's higher compression than the LS2 is, and if they're stock, the LS3 should win because it has better cylinder heads and a better intake manifold than the LS2. But if the turbo is the limiting factor, then they'll both do the same thing. If you put the 1,000 horsepower turbo on them, both of those motors make 1,000 horsepower. Remember the turbo TBSS? Well, KR may be coming from the cheap Royal Farms gas he was using in it. James, you're going to have to enlighten me. I don't know what you're talking about. Knock retard may be coming from the cheap Royal Farms gas he was using in it. What is turbo TBSS? I know that a TBSS is an intake manifold, and obviously you know what turbo is, but you must be referring to something very specific. So let me know what it is. Caleb wants to see a shootout, a junkyard shootout between a Q-Jet and a 4-Jet and a Motorcraft and a Thermal Quad and a Holley too, because we do see Holleys there. But the problem is the ones that you would find in the wrecking yard may or may not be running very well and might need to be rebuilt. Houston's in the house. Yeah, Rusty, I agree. The LS3 works good. It's got more displacement, but there's no reason to get that motor if you're, like I said, depending on your power level. A junkyard 5.3 with a cam and springs and stuff will probably do what you want, and certainly an iron 6 liter will certainly do what either one of those will do, and more probably, because we don't normally take those two blocks, the LS2 or the LS3, very high, much into the 4-digit realm, but an iron block will take to 50% more than that. San Antonio. Infamous Nova, did you make a video of the testing? Of the testing on what? I've already forgotten what we were talking about. Conroe, Texas. Have you ever done a 4.3 V6 with an M90 supercharger? I haven't. But one thing I do want to do that I hadn't ever mentioned to anybody, I don't think, even when I was talking for 3 hours to Uncle Tony on the Slant 6, is I would like to put the M90 on the Slant 6. James says the GDI benefits from charge cooling during compression. Gabe, I had a motion cam ground for my LI6, 229, 239. I wonder how it's going to react with the big single turbo. It will be fine. What's the LSA on that cam? And not that the lift matters a great deal, but that's enough camshaft for a 6-liter to make lots of power. Sealy, Texas. I got a lot of people from Texas in the house. What's going on, man? Wallace, the LS3 stock makes more power than the LS2. So when you add boost to it, it makes more power under boost. Bakersfield, California. I drive by there all the time going down to West Tech. What would be your 3 go-to cams for an LQ4 for more top-end power? Take a look at the 6-liter videos that are up. I have, we ran a bunch of cams on 6-liter stuff. The biggest ones that will fit are the ones that you're going to want to put in there. So you're going to need something that's in the 230 to 233 or 4 on the intake side, and 245 to 248 on the exhaust side. And then you would be better off if you could tighten the LSA, but unfortunately, when the cam duration gets out there that far, you start limiting piston to valve clearance. So as you tighten the LSA, which is going to add power, you eliminate piston to valve clearance, and that's going to be the critical thing. So you got to balance all that stuff. You got to measure it, and especially for top end stuff. Oh, John of the Jungle, Goat Rope added port injection to his Superado. I'm gonna have to talk to him. That'll be interesting. Doesn't matter what coil packs you use. Do you see better numbers with aftermarket like MSC? No, all of the big bang stuff that we've done has all been the factory coil pack. So 1500 plus horsepower has all been factory coil pack stuff. Just what helps is if you can adjust the dwell, which we can with the Holly. So we put it at 4 1/4 or something like that, and that usually helps. Help. Peter needs help. Why won't my Forge LS2 at 10 psi with the BTR stage 3 PD cam make more power on E85? Do you have a PD blower on it? Stuck at 620 wheel horsepower on 94 or E85. It should make a lot more power on E85 even without changing the timing. So you got something going on there. I've never put E85 in any motor, in any boosted motor, whether it's a Ford or Chevy or Dodge or whatever it is, and had it not make power. And then it makes even more power when we add timing. So something else is going on there. Lewis, dual or single plane intake on a 570 horse 406 with easy EFI fuel injection, 90% drag and occasional street. How is that easy EFI fuel injection working out for you? And if you have a 406 making 570 horsepower, you're running at a pretty decent RPM. So a single plane probably is going to work better. I'm sure that for that you've got a 242, 248 or more kind of camshaft in that. That should be single plane material. Have you tested inline 6-cylinders? Yes, we have lots of them. I've never done a 4.3 V6 and an M90. How much horsepower can a 4.62 valve handle before you start throwing a rod? I don't know. I've never run a stock one all the way up to find out what the big bang potential is. We've run them to 700 with stock bottom ends with ring gap on them. But I don't know if we've gone more than that. And it wasn't because we weren't really trying to go more than that. We were just, that was just what ended up doing. Hey, Richard, can I use stock push rods on a 5.3 with a 600 lift Pro LS stage 3 cam from? Does the MSD 614L box come pre-tuned out of the box? And with the MST boxes usually come with multiple programs that you can choose from, but usually they're much timing. So you should do that. You should not put something that's preloaded. It's very, very easy. It's very, very easy to give yourself a timing curve. And yes, you can run stock push rods, but you'll need to measure them, because I don't know if that stage 3 cam, if the base circle is any different. Just look at the video on counting the number of turns after you get to 0 lash on the rocker, and find out how many turns you have. And if it's a half a turn to 1.5 turns, then just run it. And if it's more than that, you're going to have a problem. If it's a lot less than that, you're going to have lash. So it's real easy to find out. Yeah, John, making the power is pretty easy, but getting a trans to work and a rear end and all that other stuff is a lot more problematic. Brian, everything's good, man. We're all good in the hood. Washington State, the boys from up north. I've been to Washington. I've raced at Portland at Portland International Raceway. We did some road racing up there. Very, very cool stuff. Admiral, you can probably get 500 crank on a factory short block 4.6. You can get a lot more than that. We've done 600-700 stuff all the time with blowers on them, and it doesn't hurt the stock rods. Have you twin charged an LS? I did a compound turbo stuff, but I haven't done the blower and the turbo yet, but we're going to do that. Ohio's in the house. I have not raced in Ohio. I've not raced at Mid-Ohio. I would thought that I would have, given all the road racing that we did, but I've never been there. Oh, you want to know the testing that we do with the BTR? Look up the Big Bang stuff. We ran both of I'm sure both of the 6 liters had stage 3 turbo cams in them. So they work well. You don't need a stage 3 on a 5.3. That's more camshaft than you need usually for most guys. They're trying to make lots and lots and lots of power, lots and lots and lots of boost at lots of RPM. Otherwise, a stage 1 or 2 will get where most people need to be. Brian wants to know, so is a lower duration better for earlier torque peak and horsepower peak on my 11-pound turbo? Yeah, that's going to be a function of a number of things. You can change it a little bit with camshaft, but the intake manifold design is a big thing. So if you have a truck manifold, you should make power at at a reasonable. It should be 6,500 or so or less, depending on how much camshaft you have in it. And if you have a rising boost curve, you can push peak power out farther beyond that. But usually a stock head and a stock truck manifold and boost and some kind of small camshaft, you should be 7,000 or below for your peak torque or for your peak horsepower. And if you really want to have low speed torque and power, then put a stock cam in it, and that will definitely do it. It'll make peak power about 55 or 5,600. Turbo assist, some tuning with a crate LS3 and an 88mm turbo. No matter how low I drop the timing, it goes into about 4 degrees of knock retard. Is it hearing something else? Are you sure it's knock retard? Put higher octane fuel in it and see if it's still doing it, to make sure that it's not hearing something that's not actually knock. Admiral, grounds for secession. Callie's in the house. West Virginia. MT Mike Mike Bell. Coal strip. I haven't heard of that. Let's go. Granbury, Texas, Columbia, Maryland. Man, everybody, Michigan tuning in. I like that. Street Rack Garage. Thank you very much. I have not made, well, I have made cams. We made some test pieces and I have some of those, but I'm probably not going into the cam business. I might get rid of all of the test cams I have. So, and I'll let you guys know if I have a bunch of these that are just going to, be blown out basically, because I've unfortunately spent a lot of money to do that and then decided against it. Mason City, Iowa. I think I've actually been through Mason City, Iowa. Kansas City, definitely been there. If you use closer lobes, a tighter lobe separation, and like tighter lobe separation angle, forget about the carb versus EFI thing. That doesn't make any difference. The cam is going to do what the cam does. It doesn't just do it on a carb motor or doesn't just on an EFI motor. If you have a narrower LSA, it usually improves low speed and mid-range power, depending on what the RPM range is and the rest of the specs are. It can actually improve power everywhere. A wide LSA like they use in the blower cams usually pushes power out farther at the top of the RPM range, and it loses low speed and mid-range power. So it will do that. The thing that it does do, though, is when you tighten the LSA up, it will also decrease idle quality. So if you have a combination of duration and a tight LSA, your idle quality goes away. And then the other thing that goes away when you tighten up the LSA is piston to valve clearance goes away. So if you have stock pistons, and you have to worry about that as well. Midland, Odessa. That's let's see, that's Tin Cup area, I think, right? He was in Salome, right? Victorville. I thought this was about 6 liters. We are talking about 6 liters. What do you want to know about 6 liters? They do all the same things that all the other LSs do too. When we did the video on the 6 liter, which is up now, we did a carburetor, a dual plane. We did a cam swap on it. Went from a single pattern cam to a dual pattern cam. We put EFI on it, and then we put boost on it from a ProCharger D1SC. So that's all good 6 liter stuff. There are a million 6 liter videos up. Because I've run lots of 6 liters on different things. Obviously the Big Bang stuff I've run the LY6 that I still have for the Big Bang, the Big Bang Gen 4 deal. I ran a million tests on that motor. So we ran the factory rec board heads on it. We ran 706 heads on it. We ran 799 heads on it. I ran, I don't know, a dozen or more camshafts through it. We ran the factory LY6 intake, the LS3 intake, fast intakes on the Cathedral stuff, trick flow 225 heads, you name it on 6 liter stuff. We've tested it all. Yes, I do like the L76 and I do like 823 heads. Those are awesome. Kermit's in the house. Let's see. Richard, have you worked with a Texas aluminum block with cross-bolted mains, horsepower rating before needing sleeves? That number is going to be beyond where I normally test. We've done 4-digit stuff with those. Mahovitz probably would be the guy to know about that. He's done lots of that stuff at really elevated power levels. Not where I'm running stuff. He's in kind of another realm. And if you wanted to know, send me an email. I can ask John what he thinks about that. Caleb, have you ever tested square board to spread board adapters to see how much power is lost versus using the correct manifold? The problem with that, and that sounds like a good test, an easy test, it's the kind of thing that I would like to do. The problem is when you change the manifold, you change the manifold. The manifold isn't exactly the same except for the carb facing. It's not. They change the internals of the manifold and stuff. So you're doing a manifold change there and not just the adapter. I don't think that, let's see, we run square board to spread bore stuff. We've put Hollies on, when we've done Quadrajet versus Holly tests, we've done that with adapters. But again, I think that the adapter itself changes what happens, especially if we have a divided dual plane and we put an open spacer on there, or you put one that has holes and like 2 holes in the front, 2 holes in the back, however it's divided. that in itself can also have an effect on what happens to the signal of the carburetor and ultimately the power. So it's a real kind of questionable test to figure out whether or not that's absolute. Belleville, Texas, TBS 2300. Ever put a tunnel ram on a 4.3 on the 4.3 L99 or on a 4.3 V6? Do I need to stud my 823 heads and my aluminum block for boost? Yes, I would at least use, I always use ARP head studs. So we don't normally change the main bolts though, although, you know, it's not a bad idea, but we didn't on any of the big bang stuff. You need a 6-liter, the Ozman. I thought you guys have nothing but 6-liters down in Australia if you're the Ozman, right? What's your opinion on lifter stock versus LS7 versus Johnson? I haven't done any of that testing. That to me is all long-term stuff, and what we do on the dyno just isn't that. So I can't tell you. I've had nothing but good luck with lifters. I've only ever had 1 or 2 lifters go bad, and in those cases, I think both those cases were because the tray went bad. It just got worn out because, again, I'm trying to run a 200,000 or 300,000 mile motor, and the lifter just rotates, and it just, you know, after it does that, it just destroys the cam and destroys the lifter. But that wasn't because the lifter was bad, and those are all just stock ones with a lot of miles on them. Now we've run the stuff from it's Felpro or Federal Mogul or whatever. I don't know who does theirs. They look like the factory ones. So I haven't compared Johnson or the LS7 stuff. A good guy to ask about that, James, would be Brian Tooley. And guys are talking about the B heads and the 03 Cobra heads and the GT 500 heads and the 4 GT heads and stuff. And I've seen people talk about a lot of that stuff, and not one of them has ever shown me any sort of back-to-back test about, you know, I've seen them talk about airflow numbers on these heads, on the different 4-valve Cobra heads we're talking about, or 4-valve modular Ford heads. I've seen difference in flow numbers and stuff. But nobody has ever shown me, and that includes Mahovitz, and I've talked to him at length about this. No one's ever shown me where they did a back-to-back test and one made more than the other. One actually did better. Now, I'm not going to question Mahovitz because he's making 2 or 3 or 4,000 horsepower, whatever the number is to run what he's running. So I'm not going to tell him he doesn't know what he's doing. But you can't say, look, I run 4s or whatever he runs on the quarter mile, so therefore that thing must be the best. You can't, I can't make that sort of correlation, because if you do a test and one actually does better than another one at some given boost level or at some test regimen, then that would lead me to believe that, yeah, okay, that one's better. But I've never seen any data showing me which one of these works better. Hobbs, how much horsepower will a 462 valve hold until it starts breaking stuff? I don't know. Like I said, we've run lots of stock bottom end stuff that's in the 600-700 horsepower range, and it seemed to last. Haven't done any Subaru. Street Rat, I don't know if you can run the stock Gen 6 head on a Mark IV block. You might be able to do it with the right head gasket, but I have not tried that and laid them out to make sure that the passages are all correct. St. Paul's in the house. I know I've been to St. Paul. Have you tried cheap head and main studs? I've tried some stuff and gone to put it in, and the thing felt like it was made of rubber. So like we've tried some of the stuff from the guys at Speedmaster, and we've tried a few Chinese ones, and I just didn't like them. I just put ARP stuff in it. But I don't usually put main studs in, though. Long Beach is in the house. I've definitely spent a long time in Long Beach. Richard, what's your opinion of the sheet metal fabricated manifolds? Most of them, if you're talking about like the sniper kind of version, you can look up at the videos and see where we tested them on the cathedral port stuff and on the rec port stuff, and they work okay. They're not great. They're short runner. They lose a lot of power down low. I mean, they do what that design is supposed to do. Lots of guys get them just because they're polished and they look good, and you know, for a lot of people, that's a good reason. Michigan, Road America, and Laguna Seca. I've run both of those, and those are amazing. Are you going to do more with 542 valve linkage? I've never run a 542 valve, and that's not really on the list, but maybe we could put it way, way down. What turbo do you recommend for a street 6-liter? Frank, you just got to pick your power level for 700 or 800, the GT45 size, or for more than that, a VS Racing 7875 Gen 2, an S475. Depends on the power. Craig, if you're limited to 91 octane and you can't get E85, I wouldn't run too much static compression if you're thinking about doing turbo stuff at the end. It's going to make more power. Obviously, NA if you can run it at 10 or 10 and a half. But even at that, I think that you're going to start. If you're only going to run it NA, 10 or 10 and a half is fine, because we did that with the hybrid stuff that we did. But if you are going to put a turbo on it, that's going to be pretty high for 91 octane. Ontario, Canada. Santa Rosa, definitely been there. Hilltop Lakes, Texas. I don't think I've been through there. New Mexico, been there a lot. As a matter of fact, my 5-liter Mustang's in New Mexico. It's over in Roswell. Sweetwater, Boone, Iowa. Nice. If I was to get a 6-liter, what 8th VIN letter should I be looking for? If somebody knows that, so let them know. I don't know. I don't ever look at VIN numbers. We just look at the motor. The motor says 6-liter on it, and it will have a 317 head on it normally, or it can also have a 790. If it's an aluminum one, it can have a 799 or a 243 head on it. Randall, that's something, the timing is something you're going to need to play with. Usually most guys will put it on a 2-step. The winning Powerball numbers. No, but I can make the price of blowers go up, apparently. North Carolina. I have been to North Carolina. I've been to Maxton. Did some land speed records back there. Brian, what's considered a tight LSA is all relative. You can go down to 2-digit numbers, go down to 98 or 99. I've seen on some applications. Usually, a lot of the LS stuff is going to be 112, 113, 114. The factory stuff is going to be 15, 16, 17. Blower stuff is going to be 119, 20, 21, 22. So it's all relative. Lakeville, Minnesota. Hemet. I definitely have been to Hemet. Does the 5.3 in your truck have DOD? Mine does not. What's the max cubic inch can I get out of a stock block LQ4? We normally go 408s on those with a 4-inch stroke. You can put more stroke than that in it. And especially if you sleeve the block, you can put a lot more in it. We've made 468-inch motors with sleeved blocks so that you can get the sleeve long enough. But normally the go-to thing is like a 408 on a LQ4 block. Michael, I don't know what compression ratio E85 would show benefits on. Whenever we test it on an NA motor, we pick up a little bit of power down low and in the middle, and it doesn't make any more peak power. And I don't know if that's because we're running our motors cold with full timing in them already. Like if we run an LS motor at 29 or 30 degrees, it doesn't make any more power. If we go up from there, when we put E85 in it by itself, it doesn't seem to gain much power, maybe a little bit down low. And then when we try adding timing, nothing happens on an NA motor. When we put it in a boosted motor, we don't even change the timing and it picks power up. And then when we change the timing, it picks power up even more. So I don't know where that number would be because I've never tried it, I don't think, on anything that's going to be a 12 or 13 or 14 to 1. San Jose would go through there all the time on my way to Fremont. Rock Hill, South Carolina. Hour and a half from Maxton. That was nice. I liked it back there. That was cool. It was it was an airport, and that's where I set the land speed records with the Chevy Sprint. Hey, Richard, what do you think of a CID carb intake on LS3? Rick, Leslie, take a look at the LS3 intake test and look at all of the single planes like we ran. I didn't run the CID because I didn't have one, but we ran the mass, the CNC Wizzy deal mass. We ran the Super Victor 4500, Super Victor 4150, the Victor Junior. We ran a bunch of different intakes, and you can see that one might be better than these, but it's going to do what a single plane does. So if you want to run in that RPM range, you can, a single plane is going to do that. Jonathan says his NA 463 valve is on E85 at 12.2 to 1. Have you ever tried that on 91 or anything to see if there's more or less, how much less power there is to be had? Devin, you can hand port your stock heads. You can do that. And if you're going to go boost anyways, you don't need a head upgrade. You just need cam and springs and then boost. If you're doing an NA one, you can port it yourself. And we're going to show you soon, hopefully next month, what you do as far as milling and chamber work and then bowl work and that sort of stuff, and how much each one of those things is worth when you do hand porting. Happy dude, internal wastegate on a twin. An internal wastegate would be less problematic on 2 twins than it would be on 1 single because the flow rate of the internal wastegate is usually not very much. Just be mindful of boost creep and stuff on those because a lot of times they don't flow enough to control the boost. Kermit wants to know, isn't it cheaper to run a Holly Terminator than to run a carb setup? I don't know. I don't do a lot of price comparison stuff, so I've never looked that up to find out which one of those is would cost more. Carb LT1 versus a Vortec 350, which is better? I would pick the LT1 only because it would have aluminum heads and the Vortec 350 would have iron heads. I know that the Vortec heads, the iron heads work fairly, but I would rather have aluminum heads on mine. And especially if you're going to go port them, I would rather hand port. If I had to port something, I'd rather hand port aluminum heads than I would iron heads. And then the Vortec heads also have problems with how much camshaft that you can put in them. When is the Slant 6 video coming out? It's coming out after we do the Slant 6 dyno testing. The Nova's not on the back burner. It's just been, you know, cold and rainy or whatever, and I haven't been, and I've been busy doing the other stuff. So I just need to get it down to West Tech so that I can actually, you know, thrash on it for a couple of weeks and get it running and do lots and lots of videos on it. Karen, I'm not familiar with the range module. I'll have to look that up. More power. What is your honest opinion on extrude home process on long runner intakes? I did it back in '92 on a Zoc 5 liter. It works very, very well for that application. So if you have a long runner aluminum intake that's really difficult to port, you can, I think it works very well for that. I don't know that I would use it in place of porting cylinder heads because you have access to everything. But on a long runner intake like that, on a 5 liter or the Celine stuff or the Cobra stuff, we did it a bunch of on, and that works really, really well. So I think it's an amazing process. And the thing that we did, which again, I don't think that was ideal, but we would go in and we could isolate runners and to get them all to flow the same. Now, the problem is that they weren't all the same length. So we were, you know, not equating airflow to what was happening with the runner length, but at least we could get all the airflow balanced. And, you know, that seemed to at least make us feel better when we were doing it. Sketchy Dustin, what's the best LS3 intake? Lucky for you, someone did an LS3 intake test. As a matter of fact, not one, but 2 videos up. So you can look at that testing and find out which power curve that you want. Just pick the intake manifold that you want based on all those power curves. Okay, Jonathan, it did do better at 12-1. Okay, that's good. Go for broke. How do you feel about the old school box sheet metal intakes? I have one I've built for a 5.8. So if you're talking about the like box uppers, like the Cartech or the Downs or the Hartman and Comp had those too. They do the same thing that shortening a runner does on any kind of manifold. Unfortunately, they just kill a lot of the power production in the middle part of the curve. So when you shorten the runner length, that's what they do. And that box does it. The Trick Flow box, the Box R deal also does that. But the thing is, if you go up a lot in displacement, you know, you kind of affect where that trade-off is between the runner stuff. And if you have a turbo and you're making more torque than you can use anyway, then, you know, the box can work. It's just that a lot of guys sold that back in the day. Corky Bell, the guys from Cartech and Downs and all this. Yeah, this is what you need for your boosted motor, because boosted motors need to run these. It's just RPM. The intake manifold's always RPM. Can you do a Matt Bow wants to know Matt Bow slice? That's like Kimbo slice, right? Could you do a big inch LS segment? I did a 495. Those videos are up. And we did a 468, but that wasn't nearly the biggest one. I did an RHS tall deck block, and we did a 495, and that thing made 820, I think, with a good set of LS3 heads. I think that they were mast heads. I think the Brodex heads also did very well. I didn't have nearly enough camshaft in that thing. I just basically had the bottom of the Page Comp hydraulic roller cam, which was not enough motor to feed what those heads could do and what that displacement could do. But it made, like I said, I think it made 820 or something. So it did fairly well. Happy Dude, what's up? Thank you, sir. Patrick wants to know, is there any benefit to dropping compression ratio on a 6 liter to 9.5 to 1 to stretch turbo power? No, I don't think so. Just if you, I don't know what your combination is, but if it's 10 to 1 or less, you can you can run that and it will be fine, especially if you have E85. Excuse me, I definitely wouldn't lower the compression. I'm making grilled cheese sandwiches. Actually, we just went to Buckhorn and got some really good stuff. Sketchy wants to know what bearings you run. Normally we run the ones that came from the wrecking yard motor, but there's I'm trying to think of the ACL. I think we've used. We have Fel-Pro and Federal Mogul and that stuff, and we've tried King, and I've tried a bunch of them. The thing that I can tell you is that there are differences between the standard bearing and the race bearing. There's differences in the thickness, even though they tell you that this is a standard bearing, or this is a, you know, a +1 or a -1 or +10, -1. Measure them, because the standard bearing and the race bearing is different. And then we've even seen differences between the different brands of bearings, even though that they say that they're both standard. There will be as much as a half a thou difference in those, and that can make a difference a lot of times. James, have you ever had issues running a Holley TBI on a dual plane intake? Yes, the answer is yes. We have had. That's why I don't recommend the throttle body stuff, not particularly Holley, but all of them. I don't recommend that people take a carburetor off a dual plane and put those things on, because they're not going to do what you think that they're going to do. Everybody thinks that they're going to do all of the great things that their carburetor does. Plus, they're going to be able to tune in all of the good air fuel for better fuel mileage and all that stuff. And I just haven't seen that. And then maybe I'm not good at it. You know, maybe I don't know how to tune. And I'm not the one involved in the tuning usually on those anyway. But I haven't seen those things work the way that I want them to work. A 1,000 cans of lapping compound. It's actually silicon carbide impregnated an industrial grade of silly putty. They also use diamonds in them too, industrial diamonds, to do some really, really cool fine stuff. They can change the viscosity, the lubricity, the amount of abrasive material. It's really, I mean, some of the stuff that they do, like they had some military cannons there, and it really is a very, very cool process. I remember seeing a guy trying to do it with cement. He was trying to pump cement back and forth through something to pour it. It was, hey, you know, you got to try stuff, right? Okay, 58 minutes. I'm going to go at 1 hour. Yeah, see, it is silly putty. So at the very least, and nobody reads comics in newspapers anymore, but you could take the silly putty and cover up the comic and then peel it off, and then the comic would be on your silly putty. How would the Big Bang test hold up with concrete in the water jacket? So if we filled the water jackets, that's not usually the problem with these things. We usually break a connecting rod or a piston. Usually it's the rod on the LS stuff, on the certainly on the Gen 3 stuff it was. We haven't found out what that limit is on the 4 motor, but so it's not a block distortion thing. Yes, lowrider, everything's fine from last night. Did you get a chance to re-edit your last live feed? Yeah, it did win for a while. I tried to re-edit it. I'll see if it actually did it. I've never done an edit on that after I've done a live feed, so I wasn't really sure how to do it. I'm hoping that I did it correctly. Julius, what's up? Julius is in the house. Work is flat out. I'm sure you're working hard, man. I can't wait till do you guys have warm weather yet, Julius, where you are? So I want to see those. You need to send me pictures. I need to see the Australian snakes. I'm so fascinated by the You guys have all the cool venomous snakes there. Jonathan, thanks for stopping by, man. More power. I use the Vericom. As a matter of fact, that was the first thing that I introduced when I started working at, then it was McMullen, and they were doing no testing. I was like, well, when you guys have advertisers telling you that this exhaust system is worth 10 or 15 horsepower, since you guys are not dyno testing, we didn't have an abundance of chassis dynos at the time. I said, you guys have a Vericom. They gave you one. So at the very least, we have to go out and find a road and do, up and back things and find out if there's a change in acceleration. At least you can give them that data. And the Vericom stuff was cool. You just clip it on your windshield and use an accelerometer and stuff. It was kind of neat. And that's what I said, look, we have to do something. We have to at least do that. So we did a lot of Vericom stuff back in the day. Tyler, they're scared of the like button. Demon Tech, what's up? Did you have a question before I get going? Thank you so much. Thank you, Karen. Hit the like button. Everybody hit the like button. Julius, we're coming into autumn. Easton Taipan's nice. January would be the middle of summer. Cool. A 231, 242, Chris, is a big cam on a 5, unless you're trying to run lots of RPM. But if you're putting a dual plane on there, I'm thinking that you're not. I would suggest a smaller cam with that. But a 750 Brawler is a good carburetor, and we've used them a lot. You see Michael keep forgetting. Come on, man. Dang, a 600 lift cam, that must be a big block. Admiral's chiming in. The 231, 242 and a 113, the plus 3 is going to help you, but a 231, 242 is still a fairly healthy cam for a 5.3. If you were telling me that you wanted to run to 7,000 with that motor and then run like a 200 or 300 shot of nitrous on it, then I would say, yeah. Otherwise, maybe go down to a 227 cam or something. Can't wait till a small block Chevy talk. We'll do that next. Happy dude. Just let me, and if you have a small block Chevy question, that's why we're here. We could talk about everything since I test everything. Small block Chevy stuff. The thing I want to do with a small block Chevy is I want to do like an L31. I want to do a Vortec Big Bang motor, because I think that those things will, it's a 4-bolt block. We'll have to see how tough those rods are and stuff, but it should make good power. More power. What are you doing? Stroll down memory lane. Yes, Ira, the duration would make more of a difference than on where the thing is going to make power and stuff than lift does. How much nitrous can a stock 6-liter take? We've done 300 shots on junkyard 5.3s. I haven't done that on a 6-liter because I care more about the 6 liters. But on the 5.3s, when we were doing the thing with Chris from Street Outlaws, we ran 300 shots on stock junkyard motors. They were carbureted though. I'd have to look up, Admiral. I'd actually have to look up the cam specs from the. It's been a long time since I did a 4-valve cam on a B-headed deal, but 8,000 or 9,000 RPM. Almost any cam is going to run up there. If you have a ported head, and the other thing you're going to need is a short runner manifold. But it's going to be something that's going to be in the 233, 235 at 50. I'm thinking. Yeah, 150 shot on the 6.2 Camaro on E85. Rolling in your 6 deuce. Only the OGs will know what that is. Oh, okay. Well, well, why are you asking me then? You need to talk to John. John will tell you. Although John has interesting ideas too. I can show you, Admiral, send me an email And I'll send you over some data that we have on some stuff that we ran when I was doing the testing with the GT500 intake manifold, not GT500, the FR500 intake manifold, the short runner deal. Because I think that we were running that to, oh no, I don't think we were running it out there. I'm thinking I don't think we ever even got to 8,000 on that. So Mahovitz would be your guy. he could probably let you know. If I was looking for a fuel cell, I would go to Summit or Jegs or one of those guys. Or we have a place right around the corner from West Tech. I think it's BMR or something, not BMR. BSR, I think, is the name of it, where they have a lot of race stuff like that. Any LT1 Gen 5 stuff coming? Yeah, I think Brian Tooley's got some LT1 and some L86 stuff that they're running over there, so I'll probably do some testing on that. I don't have one of those motors to test. Would a Carb L98 be comparable to a Carb LT1? Or if you're talking about an L98 tune port motor, that won't make as much power as a Carb LT1. If you're talking about the Gen 2 LT1 versus the previous L98, the L98 is still mild, but a dual plane on an L98 will make a big difference in power over the factory tune port manifold. It'll be softer. It won't make as much power down low, but it will add a lot of power to the middle part and the big end up to 5,800 or something. If it's climbing at 8,000, and they can do that. If you're adding boost to that, then you can kind of dictate what's going to happen. If you have a rising boost curve, you can get it to still climb in RPM. And when we were running centrifugal blowers, they definitely had a climbing RPM range. Okay, Chris, if you're running a 150 shot, then that cam will be fine. Ira, you need to hit them up. They might be. Yeah, Admiral, check with Mahovitz. He knows that stuff inside and out. He's done lots and lots of and he's done lots of testing both with the 4.6, and they've done a lot of 5.4 and 5.8, and then they did a lot of the 4 GT stuff with turbos on it because they did that Lance or the standing mile stuff. Robzilla Garage, how do you get the last question for tonight? How do you choose a cam that's good for nitrous? What I do, and a lot of guys will argue with this, but what I do is try to make the most power NA out of whatever combination you have, and then add the nitrous to that. Some guys will try to, and if you're running lots and lots of nitrous and you're trying to max out the amount of nitrous that you can run, then you want to start looking at specs of the cam. But for all of the stuff that I do, like if we're running, let's say we want to run a 300 shot on a 5.3, I'll just try to make as much power as I can out of the 5.3 and then add the nitrous to that. Black Cars Garage, yes, the sleeves will be fine at that boost level. That won't be a problem at all. Sketchy drive-by-wire versus cable. I like a mechanical throttle body. Very rarely do we ever run a drive-by-wire on the engine dyno, only when we absolutely have to. Yeah, I mean, if Admiral saying that people underestimate the stock sleeves, look at the stuff that we're doing. I mean, when we look at what guys are doing with the L33 and the what is it, LC9, and then all of the iron blocks that we're doing, you can make 1 million horsepower with those. Ira, I use speed density when we're doing it. We don't use mass air on almost anything. We always use speed density. And then when we're running the nitrous before, we were running with a carburetor. So that's neither one of those. All right, guys, I'm checking out. Thank you guys for showing up. I will see you tomorrow. Let's see here, Ozzy.